Hey guys, it's Pete from Beef Anxiety here. Welcome in today's episode. I appreciate y'all being here so much. Let's talk about a few things real quick. The Pete vs. Anxiety Team Anxiety Facebook group. Are you a part of it? You're not? What are you waiting for? The link's down here in the description down below, or go to Facebook and search Pete vs. Anxiety. Then look for the Team Anxiety team page and join it today. Why not? You can join and help. It'll be great. Yeah, like right now. Hurry up. Stop what you're doing. Pause this video. Go do it right now. But anyways, let's also talk about the Pete vs. Anxiety YouTube page. If you're here right now, you're probably following it most likely. If not, head on over there, subscribe, be sure to like and comment on the videos and let me know, because all that stuff really helps, guys. I really appreciate it. And help me break the stigma that mental health is talked about enough. But anyways, guys, let's get in today's episode. I'll have a great one. Thank you so much again. And as I always say, don't ask how your day is. Ask how your mental health is today.
Guys, welcome to another exciting episode of Pete vs. Anxiety. My guest today is the one of 17 hosts. You heard it right. 17, representing the BPD bunch, the one, the only. Zanny, how you doing?
I am doing great. Thank you.
Well, I'm so glad you're here. I know I came across you on Instagram, and I was like, man, I really love what you guys are doing. So why don't you tell everybody a little bit more about how it even became a thing?
So the BPD bunch was a long sort of evolving thing. I started talking about my experiences with BPD in like 2018, 19 online. It was just me. I was going to school for psychology and trying to figure out what I was going to do with myself. And one of the things that I noticed about the BPD online space was that there are a lot of great influencers, people talking about their experiences, but each one was kind of like their own little mini island where they sort of captured one area of the niche, and there wasn't a lot of like collaboration amongst different creators in the space. And I don't really know where I got this thought, but one day I was thinking about it and I was like, oh, man, like there are those TV shows where there's like a group of friends, right? And every character has like an archetype. And depending on who you are in your friend group, you're like, oh, I'm a this person or I'm a that person, right? Like Sex and the City girls, like everyone's picking a character that they relate to. And so then I thought, well, wouldn't it be cool if we could really capture the full range of BPD experiences in a group like this and show, that we all get on. And so basically that was the initial thought. Yeah. And the goal was really to show that no matter who you are, where you've been, or where you're going, it is possible to create a life worth living despite a borderline personality disorder diagnosis. And that is how the BPD bunch was born. I got my psychology degree in the May of 2022. And then that fall or summer, I started recruiting people. And so, yeah, we have, I guess it's like I'm the host and we have a rotating cast of 16 other people. And every episode we have anywhere from 2 to 5 other members on. And we just talk about various aspects of the BPD experience. We usually start every episode with stories about how it was when we were not doing well and we didn't have any kind of skills to manage. And then the second part of every episode, we talk about the skills and strategies that we've learned to deal with that particular aspect of BPD. So we started in November 2022 and now it's 2025. So been
that's
around
awesome,
for a bit.
I love the fact that when even though there's so many people there, you guys seem to flow all between each other, not a problem, and I think it's hard when it comes to co-hosts like that too. A lot of times you have the different personalities, like you were just saying, different people have their different, different things they add to the party, kind of thing. I think it's really cool though, how you guys all kind of flow together. And I was watching some of you guys' videos and it's interesting to see like how well you guys kind of, link up and everybody kind of follows one another kind of thing like that. I think it's great because you're covering all the aspects of stuff. And, and that's one of the big things I do like to promote when this is like, it shows up in different people, different ways. And I think that's a great thing is that each one of you have your own different ways. And it shows up and, you can all see it clearly because all the different people that rotate through the whole thing the whole time. So, I mean, I think it's a great idea. I came across it on Instagram and I reached out to you. I was like, Yeah, I got to see about getting somebody on about this because I was so interested because I kept seeing your guys' stuff pop in my feed, and I'm like, man, you know what? Forget it. Let me go ahead and take a shot here. Let's see, we gotta come on, and and as always, it's great because it's so cool to see other people in this field. Because when I started this show, I started in September of last year, and now I'm out to now where I'm at now. I just got to my 100 live episode like 2 weeks ago. And there's so much that's been going on, and this show is booked all the way out to October for Mondays, and then I do Tuesday through Fridays like I do now. I'm almost out to September now of just people lining up to get on here, and it's just crazy how much demand it was, and how many people are so interested to be a part of this topic. And all I'm doing is just having a conversation, just like you guys are, and it's great though. I'm like, I seen it, I'm like it, I'm like, man, I want more of it because I was curious what BPD was in the beginning when someone brought it up to me. I was like, man, I don't even know what the heck that is. Let me go look into it. And then I came across your guys' stuff, and I was like, this is really interesting because it makes sense, what's going on. It's really well explanations and everything too. So it makes sense though with your psychology background. You understand it better than anybody when you're really trying to explain it to somebody.
Yeah. I mean, I think that was one of the, I don't want to say that, someone's individual lived experience with something isn't, doesn't count as like knowledge, but I do think that, at least for me, wanting to act in any authoritative capacity, right? Like, I'm very cautious not to give explicit advice as much as possible. Like, I usually say, this is what worked for me. Here are some things you can try. It's really up to you what you do. But beyond that, I at least for myself, I wanted to make sure I was bridging the gap between the clinical and just the colloquial. And so we do have several of our cast members are licensed clinicians. So we have a DBT therapist. We have a clinical psychologist who just got her PhD. We have a qualifying psychotherapist. We have a medical doctor I think she's in her residency. So, we do have some of that going on as well. We try to fact check that stuff because there's a lot of stuff out there right now. So like trying to bridge that is important, and the camaraderie, all that. Yeah.
No, I think it's awesome. I think that you're covering all your bases with that too. And I tell everybody the same thing. I'm not certified anyway. I'm just one person on a journey. Like since the beginning to where I'm now, it's me just learning new things, and you just see me evolve as a person because everybody I meet, I take away something new from, different things I learn about different things. And as I go, and I'm always interested to know more. So, I think that what you're doing is great. And the fact that you have all those different counterparts in there makes it even better because it makes it more solid because somebody can't say, oh, well, that's not real. Well, here we go. We fact checked it with this person here. We have another one here backing it up too. So, you probably get a lot of those like random comments like, well, this is not right. This is not how it goes.
Very rarely. Usually it's because we do work very hard to do all that. I think we did get one comment recently was upset that that we're acting in any kind of authoritative capacity. And one of the things that made me think about is, the sad reality for a lot of people with severe mental health conditions is that, like, not all therapists are equal. And I don't want to say that therapists are like, I don't want to crap all over therapists because I wouldn't be where I am today without my therapist. But in my experience taught me that the reality is that a lot of therapists are not really competent in dealing with severe mental health conditions. Like, they're great for depression and anxiety, like the sort of the things that are more common. But if you have like a really severe, like a personality disorder, I found more therapists who were unhelpful than were helpful. And so when I created the BPD bunch, part of it was when I was going through it, I didn't know that you could get to a point where life was worth living. I didn't know anybody else with BPD. I mean, for one, it's a very stigmatized diagnosis. So most people, even if they have it, they won't tell people because they don't want to be labeled as the crazy person. And so, I think stories are really underrated sometimes in the sense that, like, yes, therapy and skills are all important, but if you don't have the commitment or the belief that any of it will actually work, then you're wasting your time. And so sort of the goal for the show really is just to prove that you can get better, to give people that hope so that they can go to therapy and actually be committed to the process. This is one of the things, my parents sent me to therapy, and because I didn't have any examples of people getting better, everyone would say you can learn skills, you can blah, 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 but I was like, okay, but none of you are dealing with this. What the fuck do you know? Like you don't experience my emotional pain. How on earth should I believe what you are saying?
Exactly.
And so that's really what the BPD bunch is about. Like, we're not here to treat anybody.
No,
We're just here to show and share those stories. And I also think storytelling is such a fascinating thing in terms of like mental health recovery, because it's one of the ways that you can really understand something in a more meaningful way. Like when you're learning a skill, for example, like if you don't have any stories of ways to visualize how that actually can play out in your life, it's really hard to make it make sense. And so, yeah. So basically, yeah, that's what we do.
I
We
agree.
share
I agree
stories.
100%. Yeah, I agree 100%. I think stories are great because I think it's easier for people to relate when they hear certain things that they deal with currently too. It's like, well, damn, I click with Zanny, or I click with this person. Just all the different people that are on there. Somebody there is going to touch somebody. Is going to be like, hey, listen, I can relate to this person. They deal with kind of the same things I do, and I think that's the thing people miss with stories too, is that a lot of times you find out more people deal with the same thing you do, and it makes people feel more comfortable. But at the same time, people that don't understand things want to call everything crazy because they don't understand what it is. Like, why not take 5 minutes and look up what it is and then figure out exactly what these people are dealing with? Because I remember somebody that I worked with that had BPD. Sorry, she had told me about it, and I was like, "What's that?" So I went and did a little research, and I started asking her questions. I'm like, "Listen, I'm going to ask you a bunch of questions." So I told her, and she's like, "Yeah, it's fine." And she was telling me all these different things about how she dealt with it, and then, like, she's like, I cycle my emotions and things like that. And it was weird because, I have never heard of it. I didn't know what it was, but I was more curious than ever because I was like, well, tell me more. What is this? I'm kind of curious. And then she little by little started telling me more about it. And then it was funny because a few weeks later, I interviewed somebody, and look, they had BPD, but never told me that in the pre-interview. We were talking for a few minutes, and it turned out they had it. I was like, okay, well, this is interesting now. So how is it for you versus what she was telling me? And obviously, everybody has a different way it presents itself and everything. And DID, I've actually had somebody on here with DID before, and if you watch, it's like sudden little ticks that change and things like that. And if you're watching for it, you can see it. If not, you probably really don't even notice it's going on.
Yeah.
But sorry. But yes, but I think it's great though what you guys are doing. I think it's pretty cool. Like I said, I kept seeing it come across my things, things like that. I went and checked out the videos. I like the fact that you guys cycle the host, but the fact that is it doesn't feel like that though. You guys get along so well. Your chemistry is really great. Now, did it take a long time for that to happen? Did you guys have a lot of butting heads at first, or?
We definitely had some growing pains. I mean, I think in the beginning, I think everyone got close pretty quickly, actually, because this was like the first group of people who, for a lot of members of the cast, these are their first friends who have BPD also. But most people were at like a level of recovery where, so I guess I should just say that, like, sometimes, like, if two people with BPD meet and they're both extremely unhealed and they don't have any skills, sometimes those friendships can implode pretty severely. And I think some of us had some of those experiences, but because most of us were doing pretty well, like, we could relate to each other without dragging each other down, which is like a really beautiful thing. We had, I was really blown away actually by the number of people who were interested and willing to do it. When I but you were like 17, that's a lot. Yeah, I originally accepted a lot of people because I thought that, like my experience with group projects, right? It's like a couple of people do all the work, and then like most people are like, I don't really want to do this anymore. Bye. So I accepted a lot of people, assuming that most of them would get bored or be like, oh, I don't really want to do this anymore. But that didn't really happen. Like we have had several cast members move on to do other things, or they felt like they told their story, but there wasn't really like that. It didn't happen as much as I expected it would, and everyone got on so well. So it was like, okay, yeah, let's keep this going. So now we've been, it's almost 3 years.
Yeah.
So everyone's pretty close by now. We've had some butting heads, but not much.
No, I get that. It's like the mental health Saturday Night Live, basically, of all these different people playing different parts and just cycling through, and I think it's funny though because I did say that. I said 17. I told her this off air. I was like 17. I'm like, damn, you got 17 people on this thing. How does that work? But it makes sense now because you rotate them out, as you go, and you're the base, and then everybody else is just kind of shifting around for each episode and things like that, which I mean makes sense. I don't know if I could do 17 different people. Honestly, I think I'd go crazy trying to figure all that out. But more hats off to you guys, and I'm glad it works well. So, Zany, let me ask you some questions about BPD. What are some things that people get wrong all the time about it? I mean, like, you constantly hear people say things. What are the things that people just don't understand that they should understand about somebody that has BPD?
Well, I guess I'll tackle two sides to this. The first side would be what other people's misconceptions about BPD. One of the most common things that you hear is that like people with BPD are manipulative, and they, like the love that they show you isn't real. Somehow people think like the real them is when they're being awful. And the thing that I don't think people understand is that I can't say that every single person with BPD is not aware of it, but like most of the time when we think of the word manipulation, most adults tend to think about it as like calculated, intentional, malicious behavior. And I would not deny that most of us with BPD have engaged in like manipulative behavior, but it's more in the way that children do it. In the sense that like when a child is throwing a tantrum in the grocery store to get candy from their parents, they're not sitting there thinking like, I'm going to throw a tantrum and then I'm going to get candy, right? Like they're just doing stuff to see what happens. And my experience with BPD and most of the people that I have talked to about it have a very similar, like none of us are sitting there thinking like, how can I ruin your day? Usually it's so much emotional pain that we're just trying to do whatever we can to feel okay. And yes, a lot of that behavior I would say is manipulative, but it's not manipulative in the way that people tend to think of adult manipulative behavior. It's a lot more out of control. And the thing about like, oh, none of it was real, they don't really love you, I would say again, it's a lot more, it's more like children, like the way that children love their parents is a very dependent kind of love, right? It's not like they don't care, but anyone who's been a parent will tell you that it's a very one-way street for a long time. And, everyone who's a parent puts up with it because that they're going that if you do your job well, they will eventually grow up into adults who can reciprocate. But my experience with BPD is it's not that the love isn't real, it's just extremely immature and one-sided in a lot of ways. Like, and that's a big generalization too, because again, BPD can be very different in the way that it expresses. Not everyone with BPD has such severe difficulties with relationships as I have had. But at least speaking for myself, I would say that that's one of the things that I think people really get wrong is they think that somehow all the love I've shown someone was fake. And it's not that it's fake. It's just that it falls apart very quickly because it's not a mature adult love. It's a very childish, immature kind of love, and it's often, at least for me, it was very dependent. It was like, I need you to do all the things right for me to be okay, and if you don't do all the things right for me to be okay, I'm gonna fall apart. And that's exactly what happened.
Yeah, yeah, that's in a nutshell. Sounds what it's like. Yeah, my follow up thing too, is it's like relationships. Are they hard for you though? Sometimes with people that don't understand that, like I know sometimes it can be much because I've heard some stuff about the one person I told you about that I know that has it. Like you hear all these things, oh, they went crazy and this. I'm like, I don't think that's what happened. Is what I try to tell these people. It's like, I don't think you understand what goes on in her head most days. That you think that it looks crazy to you, but it's not. So does that make relationships harder though for people that don't understand it? Like say you got a partner, have you had to teach them like, hey, listen, these are some things that you're going to experience with this, or how do you even approach that conversation with them?
It's a difficult one, I think, because I mean, so first of all, I would say I don't actually qualify for a BPD diagnosis anymore. So I haven't in several years, which doesn't mean that I don't have any struggles ever, but I
Yeah.
just it's not at a pathological level anymore. And so the thing about relationships with BPD that I think is difficult is that you have to strike a balance between the communication aspect, like helping the other person to understand what's going on for you,
Yeah.
and also taking accountability for behavior. I think this is one thing that I think is very problematic about some aspects of the mental health space is that there's almost this overemphasis on acceptance and understanding. Like, if you just understood me, I would be okay. In my experience, that's never actually been true. Like, if does it help? Yes. But nobody else can make me be okay.
Yeah.
Right? Like, then that's that balance where, it is helpful that my husband understands that it doesn't really happen so much anymore, but especially when we were first together, I would interpret any kind of discord as a sign that he was going to leave, because I was in a very deeply dysfunctional relationship in my early 20s where whenever things went wrong, I would get dumped.
Yeah.
And that really contributed to a lot of this paranoia that discord means I'm going to be abandoned. And so whenever we had an argument, I would always fly off the handle because it wasn't just that about that argument. Every argument is actually about our relationship and whether we're even going to stay together. And so when my husband started to understand that that was what was happening for me, one of the things that he would do is he would hug me and he would say, I'm not going to leave you. Like, this is not about that. And that was really helpful.
Yeah.
That was very helpful in creating the space for me to work on my reactions.
Yeah.
So that understanding was helpful. And at the same time, I have to do the work beyond that to, like, it can't always be on him to reassure me. Like, I have to be able to also do that for myself and say, he's not going to leave, right? But in the early days, when I was still very actively in the process of recovering, that was really, 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 really helpful for sure.
Yeah, no, I get that. I get that feeling too, because that's the same thing I deal with. I don't have BTD, but I get that same feeling though. Like I get in arguments just like you said, you got an argument and then you had that sense like you feel like they're gonna leave. And it's because I had a 15-year relationship with somebody who was just toxic completely. She's gaslighting me, narcissistic to the T, all this stuff you hear everybody just say they think they know it is, but what it really was, it was just that. And I think that's what it is too. Like when I get into a real big conflict with my wife and I now, I've had that problem several times where I've just like I go into these modes where I freak out. Like if they're gonna leave, they're gonna leave, and I just start pushing people away and start doing things to try and self-sabotage myself because I go into that panic mode because I think they're going to leave regardless, because I'm getting upset about something or we have a disagreement and it gets really bad to that point. And for whatever reason, I go flashback right to that point where, the other person left and then left me in shambles, basically. And, I'm picking up the pieces. So I can relate to that 100% when you say that, though, and it's hard, though, for people that don't get it at first, But luckily, my wife, she has her own mental health issues she deals with, so she understands a lot more than most people do. So I get the benefit of that from her because she understands a lot of the things I've gone through. So like in the early stages when we were dating, like I'd freak out completely about anything, like for no reason. I'd have these like panic attacks for no reason because my anxiety was always at an all-time high because I was just thinking, okay, well, when's something going to go wrong next? This is going too good. And all of a sudden, when is this going to? Like I start self-sabotaging in my head.
Yeah.
With anxiety, it's bouncing around like a pinball up there. And she knew, and she was a trooper. I'm not gonna lie, she was a trooper. There's some times where I freaked the hell out about something and it was just completely blown out of proportion of my brain. And she was the coolest person about it ever. Like she was real mellow about it. She understood exactly what was going on. And it was something different because, she understood what I was going through, and then she would be able to talk me down through it. And she's like, you just need to stop working yourself up. And you need to tell yourself that these things aren't going to happen. Kind of like you were doing, you're telling yourself he's not going to leave, and everything like that. So I can relate 100% to that. And as soon as you said that, I was like, yep, I get her feeling on that one too. I could feel that. I felt that down inside because I'm just like, man, it is the worst feeling ever too, because I was abandoned when I was 10. So, a lot of times I think a lot of this stuff goes back to that too. And it doesn't help either. And whenever I get that sense of feeling that I feel like somebody's going to leave, I go back to that moment. I don't really visualize the moment my mom left me there, but I get that feeling like I transport back to there and I'm so angry about it. So then I get angry and everything else. And, and then everything else starts happening. The self-sabotage starts happening too, and things like that. And a lot of times she just stays pretty cool about it. Even though I'm looking like a complete fool over here, freaking out because I keep having flashbacks to that moment in my head, but I don't realize that's what it is until this point, because I've dealt with this for a while now. I'm almost 40, and it only took until about last year when I started this podcast, when I started finally getting some help for my mental health, and I started discovering that a lot of my triggers are going back to that point for some reason. Like anything that makes me feel like I felt then, it just comes up, stirs me up, and I just start going completely berserk, and my head will start circling. All that stuff will start feeding it and things like that. And I got to tell myself the same thing a lot of times, like, hey man, knock it off. This is not what it seems. You're making this bigger than it has to be.
Yeah.
So, and it makes sense though.
Yeah. I mean, and I think that's that balance, right? Like you were talking about, like your wife talking you down, right? Like sometimes my husband has to tell me, like, your reaction right now, like I get that you're upset, but this is not it, Zanny. Like you gotta like check your emotions against what's actually going on right now. And I think like you were talking about like old trauma, and I think that's one of those things that that is difficult because it feels so real when it comes up, right? It feels so much like it's really happening again. And I don't know who first said this to me, but I've heard people say this in various forms, that it's important that we're not punishing the people we know now for things that people we used to know have done, right? And that's really stuck with me. In terms of trying to learn how to have more effective relationships and really examining, taking a step back from the situation and going, okay, is this really about this, or is this like an old wound that I'm kind of like bleeding out all over my husband right now? Because if so, it's not really his mess to clean up, right? So but But yeah, having somebody who will understand what's actually going on underneath the surface, I think is always helpful, because I mean, no matter how many times people say it, like, just calm down, right? Like, that kind of thing. I mean, okay, sure, like, maybe it's true, but you saying that doesn't help me.
Exactly. A lot of
Right?
times they
It's
say
like,
that, though, it makes you feel like they don't understand it either. They're like, "Oh, you
yeah,
should just relax." I'm like,
as
"That's
if it was
you
that
just you
easy,
just want to
right?
pat him on the head and say, "Well, good job. I'm glad you used your words." Because it's like, what else do you
Yeah.
say to that? Like, you don't get it. Clearly, you don't understand what's going on in my head. And my boss and I had a conversation about that recently, where I had a panic attack. I just started freaking out about something. I got so worked up. I don't even remember what worked me up. I had walked away, and she came and talked to me about like a day or two later. She's like, "Well, we shouldn't freak out at work. We just gotta, just kind of relax." And I'm just thinking, okay, I appreciate what you're trying to do, but you have no idea what's going on in my head currently, do you? And
Yeah.
she's just like, she tries. So I mean, like, I give her credit, because at least she tries. She may not
Yeah.
completely understand, but she's got that like motherly kind of feel to her. Like she tries to understand, in the best way she can. And with a lot of people, at least she's trying, because some people just like see
Yeah.
that and then just kind of like, they're crazy or whatever. It's always something that, if everyone on the outside looking in has no idea what's going on, but then when you explain it to people, they just look at you like you're completely lost your mind someplace.
Yeah.
It's like, well, this is what goes on in my head. I hate to break the news to you. Or they try to tell you that it's all messed up. I think it's all made up. That's what the older generation will say. Oh, it's all mixed up. Everybody has this. Everybody has that. Not everybody doesn't have that. That's what I'm trying to tell you. Just because you all want to put everything in a box, it doesn't work like that. Unfortunately, this isn't a survey. We're not checking boxes here. It's not like that, guys. Really, it's not.
Yeah.
Listen. So let me ask you a question. Do you have any kids?
Nope.
So let me. I wonder, because I wonder what it's like, if when you have children though, and you have BBD. Would do you think it would make it harder though, because now you're both kind of acting childish a little bit? The kid obviously is acting childish because they're a kid, and then you're acting childish too, just because that's the way you react to things. Would it not be? Would I be not correct thinking that though?
Well, I mean, I'm not too worried. I mean, for myself, that's not something I'm worried about. We've definitely, I mean, on our show, we have done episodes with people who are parents and have BPD. It depends
Yeah.
on, I mean, if you actively have BPD,
Yeah.
then yes, it makes things difficult. We have I don't remember how many seasons ago it was, but we did an episode with one of our former cast members and her daughter. So her Andrea, I think she was with us for 4 seasons, and she got pregnant when she was a teenager,
Yeah.
and that was and so she's in her early 40s, and her daughter is in her mid 20s now.
Yeah.
And so like they talked a lot about their relationship and how that's evolved over the years, and definitely being a parent with active BPD is hard on the relationship as a whole. Thankfully, they have repaired their relationship for the most part, and they're very, very close, so it's not like a hopeless situation. I'm not really concerned about they don't exist yet, but I am planning on having kids at some point. And I mean, I don't technically have BPD anymore, so I'm not really too concerned about that part. And I think because I actually am more concerned about being too analyze-y with them, because I know all the therapy stuff now, so it's like, okay, don't be that mom that's like, well, actually, this is what's happening in your brain. Like, I want to make sure that I'm there for them and I listen to them, and I think that's more the danger for me, is leaning too heavily into the psychobabble.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, that'll be an interesting conversation when you get to that one. If you're thinking about like, well, okay, now how am I supposed to answer this question? Well, honey,
Yeah.
here's what's going on right now, and then you're trying to break it down like a normal person, like you don't understand all these extra layers of everything.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's just interesting though, because it's like I mean, my kids unfortunately got caught in the warpath of my personal journey. And I felt so bad about it. I mean, like, I don't tell many people about it, but it was rough, man. Like, they watched me self-destruct so many times because after me and their mom split up, I didn't couldn't trust any people for a while, man. Like, it was just so hard to trust people because I was like, how do I know that they don't have an alternative motive every time you meet somebody? Or you start getting that feeling like, you're like, oh shit, this other person's just like that person. Oh hell no. It's time to start trying to back off and get defensive and things like that. You understand what I'm saying, right?
Yeah.
So, and it's like it was so rough, but and I feel terrible for him, man, because I was a mess. I had so many problems. I totally denied it for so long, until I finally started getting some help for myself now. And now I have to be like your old cast member. I have to try and rebridge the gap between us now because I put so much space there because I refused to identify the fact that I had issues and things like that. And, I just didn't want to accept it that I had problems because I think I had fallen into that stigma for a long time that I just thought that if you go to therapy, then you're absolutely nuts, when it's really not the case. Honestly, it's nothing wrong with understanding your feelings and things that you deal with and how to handle them better in situations versus just letting it go completely rampant and just run your life and take over, ruin relationships and things like that.
Yeah.
So, and it's so interesting though too to see all the things I've learned from now into where I started this thing in the beginning. Like, I didn't know it near as much as I know now, and and it's so interesting because I get to meet different people such as yourself, and these different conversations and different things you guys add in, and the stuff you guys are doing is awesome, and and things like that. Do you have any plans for any other podcasts? Something just like on your own kind of thing, or are you just gonna kind of?
Yeah, so I did start my own channel last month. And it's basically the space for all the things that don't fit in the BPD bunch. So going like my most recent video was a bit of a rant. And then I'm a seamstress, so the tagline for my channel is cats, crafts, and the mental health things most people won't talk about.
I love
So
it.
so I have 4
Awesome.
cats, and so one of them makes an appearance in every video, and then I make things, so it's kind of all the things. It's the place for my personality to explode. So I just started that. It's called Xanabel, which is I came up with my handle several years ago, or not several years ago now, like 7 years ago. And it's based on the nickname that my dad gave me when I was growing up. He'd always call me Xanabel, so that's how I came up with my handle. And that's the same name as my other shows or my channel, I guess. So yeah, so that's branching out, especially since I don't have BPD anymore, really. I mean, it's not, I have a whole host of other challenges, ADHD for one.
Yeah.
But I think especially since I don't actively have BPD anymore, it was really helpful to me to have a space where I can talk about other things. Like, I'll still keep running the BPD bunch and talking about those experiences, but I'm kind of now at this turning point where I really...
You want to distance yourself, make your own identity, basically.
Well, you just, have, do other things. Like, I always am going to be involved in the BPD community, I think, and be a champion of that.
Yeah.
But, like, as an example, like, last night, my husband was really stressed out about something, and he wasn't being, like, the most pleasant, because that's what happens when people are super stressed, right?
Yeah.
And, I was sitting there thinking, like, I almost got my feelings hurt. I had, like, a little bit of a twinge. And I was like, you know what? He is, like, having the worst week. Like, give him some grace. It's really not that big a deal. Like, you've been way worse. And you know what? Like, it's just like, I'm just so different from the person that I used to be when I actively, like, when I had BPD, like, if he was stressed at me for any reason, I'd have been like, well, your stress isn't an excuse for you to be an a-hole. Like, no grace, no whatever. And then I expected everybody else to have grace for me when my emotions had me lashing out. And so I think I'm just at a point where I'm excited to branch out and also talk about other things, because BPD is not an active part of my life anymore.
No, I get that completely.
It's a part of who I was. It's an important part of my story, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, no, that makes sense though. I mean, I agree though. Like when I turn off this podcast, a lot of times I don't talk about mental health much. I do have some other stuff. Like I always try to find something else, because I think the biggest concern my wife and my therapist both said is they're afraid that I start mimicking things I learned from other people and start taking on the traits of what they have. And so like when I'm done, I get up, I do something else, I go record. I do a lot of these episodes. I'm doing five a week at most, and sometimes more. It just depends. And I feel the same way too. It's like, I have other ideas and other podcasts I want to do of just different subjects and just different things, just get away from it all. Because, like Pete versus Anxiety is great. I love learning everything I can, but some days it's just like, I just want to talk about other stuff, not have to be under the microscope all the time, every time I turn it on. Because when I'm under this profile, obviously I have to be mental focused. But if I'm under doing something other than a show, I want to be just that entity that show is, not Pete versus Anxiety, because Pete versus Anxiety is just one thing I do, but I want to do other things to talk about other stuff too. So I get that feeling when you want to branch off and do other things and talk about other subjects and stuff like that. So let me ask you an interesting question though. Okay. So I had interviewed a guest. She goes by G Rex. Okay. She runs a podcast called The Shit That Goes On in Her Head. Okay. So she said to me, what if your mental health had a song, what would it be? So what would your mental health song be? Like what would explain what your mental health currently is if you could put it in the form of a song? And it's a
Oh,
great question too. I'm telling you, this is interesting response.
Okay, so the hard thing is that I am in a music duo, and so I was writing music today. So it's hard because I'm like, oh, the songs that we wrote, but they're not released yet, so nobody would know what it is. So I had to try to think of one that like to describe my mental health. I mean, I would say the song that described my mental health when I was really active with BPD would be Love the Way You Lie, Eminem and Rihanna. That was like my theme song, the sort of like, because it was all about, like essentially like killing yourself to stay in a toxic relationship kind of song. Like, I don't care if we burn the whole house down, we're going to burn it down together. Right. And that was definitely my vibe. Now, gosh, what is a song that that's not one that we wrote?
I told you it's a good question, isn't it? It makes you really think about this one.
Honestly, the only song that comes to, it's a breakup song. It's Shout Out to My Ex from Little Mix. And only because it's like, it's a song that's really about like a gratitude towards the things that didn't work out because of the life that it allowed you to live now.
Yeah.
So I think that might be one. I'm sure if I sat and thought about it long enough, I'm like, because I've got lots of favorite songs, but none of them really thematically capture my life now. I also do a lot of like barbershop music. So I'm trying to think of something.
So
Maybe Work from Britney Spears.
So let's circle back here for a minute. You just said you unreleased songs. So is that something you do in your free time? Is music?
Yeah. So one of my I've written music on and off for most of my life. But I have never been a particularly prolific lyricist. So most of my songs would end before they really began, because I would have like a couple of lines that I thought were fire, and then I would just be stuck, and then I wouldn't go back to it. And through the BPD bunch, one of my like co-cast members, Selene, she wrote a poem called Why Me. It was about her BPD experience, and I was like, wow, this is really good. Can I put it to music? And she said, sure. So I did. And then that was basically how our duo, we're called Excessive, spelled XSIV, because those are our initials, and then So yeah,
I love
Excessive
it.
we're a music duo, and she does spoken word and writes most of the text, and I do the music and sing. And we have a couple of like bits of demos out there because our first album is all about the BPD experience.
Yeah.
So we have 9 songs that cover, each one covers a different trait of BPD. Then we have a song about recovery, we have a song about stigma, and then we have Why Me, which is sort of the song that's all about the BPD experience.
Yeah.
And because they're about BPD, like if you go to the BPD Bunch page, there are some reels that we've done that we've collaborated with our music account, and so you can hear some of the demos.
Oh, okay.
But they're all going through production right now. So the goal is to release the album by the end of the year.
Hey, that's what's up. That's
Towards the
awesome,
end,
though.
towards the end of the year, we should have a couple of the songs coming out. But
What kind of
yeah,
genre would you say it is, though? What do you guys? What would you put it in?
I think the closest is pop, but it's like
Okay.
an eclectic pop because we don't really stick to one genre, really. I mean, I think our producer is working very hard to try to tie everything together so that there is a through line. But
Yeah.
I mean, BPD is kind of an eclectic experience. So when we were thinking about the album, we were like, all right, well, let's lean into different genres for different symptoms.
Yeah. I
So,
think
you
that's a
know,
great
like,
idea. Honestly, I think that's a really good idea. Touch on different stuff as you go and kind of dip into those different areas depending on what you're trying to express feeling wise.
yeah, so there's a little bit of like EDM, there's a little bit of R&B, there's a little bit of punk, there's a little bit of pop, there's a little bit of
I
rock.
like it. I
It's
think it's gonna
just
be
like,
interesting.
so yeah, so I'm excited about it. We've finished one song and we're working on 3 more, and the rest are written. We're just working through it. So
That's pretty cool
yeah.
though. That's awesome to see that you're taking it and taking to another level. I think it'll be interesting to hear the album in general because taking it through that, people are gonna feel it either way. Think about it, because the way the songs are gonna pull them, which way you lead them through this whole thing is really what's gonna come down to. Though I think it's gonna be interesting. Honestly, I'm very interested to hear it though. I look
Yeah.
forward to it. So you have to keep me posted when you drop it, so I know, so I can put it out there and let people know and share it
Yeah,
around.
I'm very excited about it.
You better be excited. What do you mean?
It's
You made a record, girl. Come on now. How many people
yeah,
can
it's a
say
dream. It's a
like an
dream come true.
album?
I mean, like I have, since we've started working together, I have written one song entirely by myself, but that almost never happens because I just don't have I have like a couple of good lines, and then my brain's just like, that's all you get. And I'm like, okay, great. So I'm so lucky to have Selene to work on this with. And
Yeah.
we've never actually met in person. We talk on video chat all the time, and she lives in Dubai
Oh,
in the
okay, okay.
UAE. So we're gonna meet in person for the first time this summer, and I'm very excited. So
That's awesome, though. I mean, where are you located? Are you New Mexico? Is that right? And I heard what you say
yeah,
before.
New Mexico.
Okay, okay. That's so cool, though, man. Like I had a friend that I've known for a long time. We met online too. We played Call of Duty together, and we've actually met in person too. And we went to go see. He came in to see a concert because I'm in Texas now, and he's in California, and he's come to visit before, and we've met in person. And it was great. It was. So I'm hoping for the best. I don't see why it wouldn't be. It sounds like you guys are already match made in heaven there. You got an album coming out, that's awesome. Like I said, you're doing so many great things though. You're sitting here.
Yeah, too many things to be honest. I'm like, so I'm trying to keep up with everything. But yes, I am very excited about it.
That's awesome though. You should be excited. Like I said, that's awesome. How many people can say they have their own album of that, they've written and things like that.
And
You
it's
know?
cool because so far every person who is collaborating on the album with us has also either has an active diagnosis or has at some point been diagnosed with BPD. So our producer has BPD, we have a violinist who is going to be doing some tracks, and she also has
Listen,
BPD.
I
So
know
it's
somebody
like,
else that has BPD. Have you ever heard of the band Haunter?
mm-mm.
No, it's Lucy Lenore, the lead singer of Hunter. Actually, she has BPD as well. So I was
Yeah,
like,
there's a lot of us in the music industry. I mean, it's part of why I think people make music. Sorry, I dropped my fidget goop.
no, you're good. No, I think it's awesome, man. I really do. I think it's really cool what you're doing. I can't wait to hear it. Honestly, I think it's gonna be something really great. Like I said, I'll share it to everybody I know for you. I love the music. I listen to it all the time. I meet different people that do music, all different types of genres. It doesn't matter if I've had all different kind of genres on this show. I've had Life's Lost on here. I've had Pretty Suspect on here. I've had Lucy Lore of Haunter. I had a guy, the lead singer of Alive and Stone on here. So I've gotten hitting all the points of music. And a lot of them, it's interesting to get their perspectives on mental health. And Lucy, I didn't realize she was such a big mental health advocate when I started talking to her, and we were getting everything set up. And when we pre-interviewed beforehand, before we hit record, she was talking about it. She was all excited and things. It was so cool, because she's sitting here talking to us about it. And then Lives Lost was really cool too. Tanis and one of the guys, Aaron, he was one of the guitarists. They came on and we were talking for a bit too. And a lot of their songs are all mental health related too, and things like that. And it's so interesting to hear all that too, because it's like, a lot of people, that's what they use when they're in those really dark times, is music to get them out of it, and a lot of times those songs resonate with people. Like me personally, Leave a Light On, Talk the Dark Way by Papa Roach is one of my favorite songs, just because, man, when I'm in a real bad mood, I turn that on and it's just, I don't know what it is about it. It just kind of makes it makes you feel better afterwards. Now there's other stuff I listen to too. And like, I listen to everything, honestly. But it was just, it's interesting to hear like how a lot of these guys, you know, have their own mental health conditions, and then they're making all this music. And it's like, it's great because, all these people are being touched by these songs. And I feel like that's what's going to happen with yours. When yours drops, you're going to get an overwhelming response that you deserve, just for all the hard work you do and everything like that. It'd be great though. I mean, I really
Thank you.
think so.
I hope so.
No, don't
Well,
hope
you
so.
haven't
Stop.
heard us yet, so you might not think we're any
Stop.
good. But
Stop it. God damn it. You better quit. We don't do negative talk here in this show, okay? We don't do negative self-talk. Listen, you gotta hype that thing up, girl. You gotta hype it up like you're winning
Yes.
the Super Bowl kind of thing. You know what I mean? Like, it's awesome. It's an accomplishment, man.
Yeah.
And it's like I said, I think it's gonna do wonders for people. I think you're gonna take people on an emotional ride, and people are gonna be like, damn, okay, now I better understand what someone with BPD has and things like that, and then you can lead it to other albums of other stuff you want to do. And you never know, man. You never know. You may collab with some of these people that we all see here, these big stars and things like that. You never know. One day you'll be telling us, "Oh, I'm collabing with these guys," and we're gonna be like, "Well, we're jealous. Thanks for rubbing it in."
Well, you hit the nail on the head. I mean, I think our goal really was to create something that helps people understand what the experience of some of these symptoms is like, and so hopefully it will be a tool that people can use. I mean, it's not just for entertainment, but for understanding. So I do think we're probably going to get some people who are like, wow, like this is not how I experience this at all. But that's kind of the beauty of individual experience and expression, right? Is like we all experience things differently. So
yeah, just tell them to just turn it off. They don't like it, tell them to fuck off. Honestly, just let you tell them. Just be honest. I'm like, listen, hey, you don't like it? Well, that's great. Go fuck off then, because I don't care if you don't like it. You don't have to listen to it. Turn it off. That's the great thing about music.
Yeah.
There's so many different kinds of music you can listen to. You don't have to listen. If you don't like it, okay, cool. Then get the adios. I don't know why people feel they need to say shit just because I don't like it. Okay, you don't like it. Okay, that's great. Some people don't like the Dallas Cowboys and all this other shit. Like it's like anything you apply it to, somebody's always got to come in and say something. Well, I don't like this. I think it's okay. Well, that's great. Don't listen to it then, or don't watch it, or don't, whatever. Get over it. So, but anyways, as we get ready to start wrapping up, Sandy, I want to thank you so much for coming. I appreciate you coming. It's been great. Sounds like you've got a lot going on. I look forward to the album, things like that. You got anything other planned in the future we didn't know about that you're not telling us about?
I mean,
writing any books, they're going to be a superstar. We're going to be like, listen, I remember that day she was on the show. And
well, yeah, I'm that too. Books also. I'm going to be at the walk. Well, this is pretty soon, but I'm going to be at the Walk for BPD on Sunday, June 1st in New York City.
Yeah.
So if you're in New York, you can come drop by. It's put on by Emotions Matter. I'm actually wearing their T-shirt from a couple years ago.
There you go.
Walk for BPD.
That's so cool.
Engage in stuff like that. The BPD bunch we're wrapping up our 6th season this week. We have our 7th season. We'll be back in the fall. So really, in the meantime, like this summer, we're just working on short form content and keeping the content machine going. I guess it sounds so corporate to say it like that, but
no, I get it. I get it completely. You know, and I think it's awesome what you're doing. Like I said, I really see a lot of things happening for you in the future. I have a good feeling about it. I feel like I said, when you release this album, you know, you're gonna do a lot of big things that you didn't realize are gonna happen, just because, you know, with music, it connects everybody, no matter what color you are, what race you are, all that other stuff, all that stuff together, it all good. So when you're a big rock star, don't forget about us, okay? All right,
I won't.
She's like, all right, I won't. You know, maybe I'll send you some autographs. I don't know, you know. But anyways, guys, let's wrap up this episode of Pete vs. Anxiety. Guys, I'm Pete vs. Anxiety on everything. X all the way down to TikTok. I'm on Spotify, all the way down to iHeartRadio, guys. And as I always say, it costs nothing, absolutely nothing to be kind to somebody. One kind act you can do can save someone's life, or hell, you can make their day. I'm Pete vs. Anxiety saying, don't ask how your day is today. Say, hey, how's your mental health today?